time of the week, and you might be wondering, why have you got 2 episodes up in one day? Well, I would have done an episode last week, so the episode just gone was last week's episode for this week, mainly because I had the pleasure of X24 Riders company for Survivor Series. Thank you, sir. Your company is always appreciated. And it's one of those things, you don't really leave a guest, by their lonesome and whatnot. So that's why there wasn't an episode last week. It's just, polite common courtesy and all that jazz. So this episode is dedicated to the Commander, where he's looking up high from the sky and he's like, yes, I see no bullshittery this week. Everything is just fine. Only stop making fun about ponies. Trust me, he'd be like, oh, dude. But anyway, let's get to his first question. What's your opinion on hashtag freedom for Kesha? Short version, Kesha claims her producer raped her for a decade. This is kind of dark already. Is trying to take him to court, and Sony's basically saying, we're gonna stop every attempt you make at making music unless you drop the case. Right. Let me see if I can digest the context of this. Producer has been having their way. So the producer has been having his way with her for the better part of a decade, against her will. She wants to take him to court for taking away years of comfort, dignity. Basically, part of her humanity is gone. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Kesha's music, but that kind of shit should not be happening. And Sony basically saying, we're going to stop every attempt you make at making music unless you drop the case. Well, to that I say, it sounds like Sony are more concerned with the big dollar sign rather than the well-being of their artist, who in turn is providing profit for them, but that her producer is abusing her. Pardon my French, but it sounds fucked up. I can't really put it into any other context than that. Well, for starters, if Sony knew about this, why didn't they? If they knew something about this, then they should have stopped this. But if they didn't know anything about it, then, well, for starters, that guy should be fired and kicked to the curb. The way I see it is gonna go one of two ways. Either Sony come to their senses, and I'm not gonna hold my breath on that, considering the whole debacle with Sony and George Michael that went on in the early 90s, but that's a road less traveled. We don't want to go there. If Sony come to their senses, again, pending, then they should not only fire the guy's ass, pay out damage for what Kesha has suffered, and allow her to still make music. But the way I think it's gonna go is Kesha will basically say, screw you all, I'm gonna take my business elsewhere and also file a suit for negligence on your behalf. That's how I think it's gonna go. And Kesha, like I say, not a great fan of your music, not my thing, but you go and take them for every single penny that they're worth, because no one should suffer that. Question 2. Original Titans or that abortion that is Teen Titans Go? Original. I don't need to say anything else. Question 3. How do you think Sega, I know where this is going already, if they gave a shit, which we know they don't, would be able to make a decent modern Sonic game? Number 1, you rehire Yuji Naka, first and foremost, because that is a guy that has a clear perception. Because when he was in charge, things were done right. Although, to be fair, with Sonic Colors, and Sonic Generations, also known as SG, they had a sense of clarity, logic, and common sense of how a Sonic game should be done, and then reset the standard for how it can actually draw the audience back in and actually be like, hey, you didn't screw up this time, I'm going to reinvest in you. And what happens? A couple of games later, they drop the ball faster than Eva Marie can botch. Yes, Sega have Eva Maried multiple times. Make of that what you will. My brother showed me this video of one guy analysing where Sega and Sonic have gone wrong, and it's the very simple principle: they keep rushing things. They've got to be the first at everything. Now, with the Dreamcast, I think if they'd taken a little bit more time, they could have not only ironed out a few faults in the Dreamcast, because ours had this nasty habit of resetting itself, yet there was no reset button. Make of that what you will. But the Dreamcast, in its very basic principles, it had components that are standard in consoles today. I mean, best I can tell, the Dreamcast was the first mainstream console that allowed online gaming. This later became standard practice in PS3, the Xbox, the 360. I think the Wii and the Wii U have online capabilities. Comment section below just to confirm this. And the Xbox One will do exactly the same. So people might narc on Sega for a lot of the things that they've done wrong, and there's a big list for that. But there are some things that they actually got right, and the Dreamcast was one of them, because that opened doors for possibilities for things that are actually done today. I think if you need a very basic template example of how to do a decent modern Sonic game with little to no glitches at all, I mean, no game is perfect. There might be some games that are this close from perfection. It's very rare when it does happen, but you get some games that are near that. There are the three games that I can put on the table in terms of, just so you can get an idea. Now, I know Sonic 3 and Knuckles is not a modern game, but you look at how that was done. No zone was wasted, no animation was wasted, everything was ironed out as best possible, and Sonic 3 and Knuckles is one of the most iconic, legendary video games and Sonic games that people often go back on to play if they still have a Mega Drive, or if they go play on a compilation version that's been released on the GameCube and the Xbox, and to Xbox Arcade and the PlayStation Network, and whatever the one that's called on Nintendo. Is it Nintendo Arcade? Comment section below. But the two other ones I can really bring to the example. I mean, I've already just mentioned Sonic Generations. I mean, that was, I think the only thing that was wrong with that game, it was too short. If they just added a few more zones, make it feel like you could have to spend at least 2 weeks playing this game, not through dying multiple times or getting things wrong where you have to go through so many zones to get there. That would have made it crystal clear, picture perfect. The other game, and a lot of people narc this game to this day, and I don't know why, but that's out of their own sheer ignorance and whatnot. Opinion only. Game in question is Sonic Unleashed. If you look at how the game is done, from the daytime levels with the high speed running and then the 2.5D perspective for Sonic's running levels, and then when you flip it over to night, and this is where a lot of people miss out on the theme of night and day. Werehog, Sonic, and also yin and yang. It's a contrast. It's polar opposite. Night and day. When you look at the Werehog levels, yeah, it's totally, completely polar opposite to what you would expect from Sonic's daytime levels, but that's the point. It's supposed to be something that's polar, very contrary to what you normally expect. And I actually found the Werehog gaming very therapeutic. You come home from a long day at work. You're tired, you're a little bit frustrated, you wanted to chew that guy out for saying that his mullet was something from the 70s when you know for the fact it was from the 80s, but the guy's just too pig ignorant and can't see, further than the end of his own nose. You feel like taking out that frustration. You play on the werehog, and one of the little night creatures like, see what I mean? It's therapeutic. It's a stress reliever. That's the whole point of that type of level. Some people say it's borrowing from Gears of War. Never played it, so can only take their word for it. But I found that enjoyable, and it was nice to sort of see a contrast. That's the word I was looking for. A contrast where Sonic's just that little bit grouchier, not so level-headed and sound of mind. He's still there, but he's just allowed to cut loose and, attack a little bit more. The only minor criticism I will make with the Werehog segment is based upon the viral trailers that they put out, where you're seeing all these events happen and you see this silhouette of Sonic in his Werehog form jumping over roads and going through alleyways. The perception that I got was that Sonic would lose control of his personality and his mind and succumb to this feral instinct that that was happening with the Werehog. The same type of mentality you'd see in werewolf movies. A guy goes from human to half man, half creature, and the logic is not there of a Homo sapien. It's just there of a primal rage personality that's only concerned with two things: killing and eating. But they didn't do that with Sonic now. But then again, I have to keep in perspective. It's somewhat of a still family-orientated game. But it would have been nice to see Sonic lose a little bit more control, and you'd have to have some kind of method of actually keeping him within line. That's my take on it. Number 2, don't pay attention to the fans. The fans that say, we want like the old days. You give them like the old days. This is too much like the old days. We want the modern day. You give them the modern day. It's like, come here. Shut up! What you need to do is they need to listen to constructive, concise criticism. Some good, some bad, but if it's constructive, they'll say, this panned out okay, but you need to take, say, components J through T out and replace them more with A through D. This is just an example. And then that smoothens things out, that makes it much more fluid and just makes it much more enjoyable. Get rid of Sonic Boom. That thing is a train wreck. Yeah, the animated series I'm kind of on the fence about, but I don't know. I think they just need to take out all the bells and whistles and go with a much more simplified format. Whether it's just brought back to just having Sonic and Tails, I don't know. But they need to do something that's not so heavy-handed with extras that don't need it. I mean, if you add extras that are actually going to be functional. Actually give it the sense and purpose, not stuff that's just there for the sake of. It's been long-winded, but again, bring back Naka, keep it simple, and just take off all the bells and whistles, because you don't need it. And after all that long-winded segment, you know how the shtick works by now. If you have a question and you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or dynamicnight.com, leave a question in the comment section below, or if you have a question that you'd like to send to my Twitter, the link is in the outro. But until then, ask again.